Thank you all. Hi, I'm George Zeno. I'm with the Athena Group, and I'm going to, oh, hi. That's okay. I just like looking at my backside, looking at myself, so it's good. I'm with the Athena Group, which is a women and minority-owned consulting group based in Olympia. We do statewide projects and focusing on leadership, organizational, and community health practices. I like to say that we lead a movement of organizational justice from a community lens, bringing community practices into the institutions. The agenda today is I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. We're going to do some systems overview because we did some polling before the session about what folks are familiar with. One of the areas that we discovered is like most people have not been exposed to the political determinants of health, though I've been hearing people orient to those things or talk about those, but probably not in a sense that they know that they're talking about political determinants. And we're looking at the full system approach to this work. And then we're going to go into what it means to be legit in our work. We need to have a better understanding about the power of community and what they have in determining the factors of what is acceptable and what's not in our communities and from our formal institutions. Then we're going to do a workshop because I'm not here to lecture at you. You're not going to build a new habit by just listening to me. So we're going to do a little bit of workshopping to get you into a practice of sharing and a little bit about accountability as well. So hopefully you will take away a sense of growing your confidence and learning with others and knowing that there's more out there to discover. So this is a photo of Birch Creek Apartments in Kent, King County Housing Authority, and it was remodeled and in 2008 changed its name to Birch Creek. Its original name was Springwood Apartments. This is where my family moved to when we moved from Louisiana to Washington, with really nothing but a dream of a better life than what we had in Louisiana. So this is my first exposure to community, was living in public housing, and really grounded me in understanding what access means. And I formed my entire career and purpose around access and opportunities. Primarily working in higher education at the University of Washington, where I was recruited to lead the university's Equity and Justice Center for Philanthropy and External Relations. We're doing reparative justice work in the communities, apologizing for the university's practices and policies around everything from fisheries, forestry, education, disruption of education of others, including our Japanese American students who were turned in by the university during World War II, to access to education that were appropriate and reflected the lives of the students, including the University of Washington becoming the first higher ed institution to implement Black and Chicano studies in the country. So leading all the well-being activities for the university, including its collective impact work with the tribes, and corporations and understanding what well-being means. Then did further work in Berkeley, similar work, working in global health, building health structures and systems, and then decided to go into consulting because of what I believed was a need to create a new orientation to the work, because I've seen practices of consultants entrenching status quo. And so I'm happy and blessed to be part of the Athena Group, which has given me a sense of power, of change, and inviting me to spaces like this where I can stand in front of you all. So I'm going to do a little systems overview because I want to make sure that we have a shared orientation to how to see this work, especially in housing, as a critical element of the social determinants of health. So we're going to look at the political determinants of health, and when we did the poll, actually, I have someone who's going to assist in handing out some information for you. Yes. So when we did the poll, I asked if folks were familiar with political determinants of health. I think we had about 2 responses saying yes, they know. So I'm going to just do a quick orientation here. Who are familiar with the political determinants of health? Yeah, one. Okay. So have folks heard of the social determinants of health?
Are political and social determinants the same?
We're going to get to that. Yeah. So the social determinants of health are indicators at the individual and community level around key factors in our living conditions that help us better understand well-being of self and our communities. Those include transportation, education, housing, our natural environment, finance, and a number of other different factors that really are designed for us to navigate in life. And you're going to see a little bit of that in a moment. All of those are drivers, and they will tell us, as a couple of presentations have said earlier today, that what our life expectancy might be. So if you actually have reduced opportunities for well-being, then your life expectancy will go down compared to others. And that can change from zip code to zip code. You know, we can look in the Puget Sound area and the Seattle area, where in West Auburn, life expectancy is something around 69 years old. And then you go to West Bellevue, which is 18 miles away, and it's like 86, 87 years old, right? West Bellevue is a very wealthy Medina area of the Puget Sound. So that speaks to a lot. What you have here are the political determinants. The political determinants drive social determinants. They just don't happen. They're designed. Political determinants are actually the root of the causes of our environment. We can look at individuals and point to the individuals to put up your bootstraps, to survive the designs around them, or we can look upstream to the politics that actually drive the design of our environment. There are three determinants, the political determinants: voting, forming government, and executing policy. So when we activate those political determinants and they get exercised as policy, those policies get executed out to the community. You can see the diagram, the triangle to the right, and then those activate the determinants of health. Okay, so if you even look at it from the lens of Department of Commerce, Commerce is executing policy from government around housing, right? And then that policies are going to create equity or inequities, because no government policy is perfect, right? And so there will be marginalization in your design as execution of policy. It's important to understand when we talk about advocacy is to bring this information from what we're learning from local knowledge development back into government through advocacy. And in those advocacy areas, we are looking at the local knowledge is telling us what do we need to change? How do we reduce the margins and through understanding the discriminations that are built into our designs? This impacts several areas, including our economic well-being, national security. So if we don't have a healthy military, we're going to be in trouble. So these are critical factors to understand about the political drivers of this work. This should give us a new orientation to how we see our work. Why? Is because if we don't see this as an upstream of change, the root of our causes, then we're only going to be looking at downstream, and we're going to be looking through a charitable lens. That's important to understand, because if you say they're getting grants from Commerce, like you've won something, versus getting grants from Commerce and saying, I'm helping Commerce build its capacity to advocate for change in our government policies. It's a different lens. And that's the critical part of empowerment now, is understanding what is your role. You don't have this slide because I had to make an executive decision on printing here. And I thought the political determinants map was really important for you to take home with you. This is the full stream impact look at the work here. So if we look at here are our systems of living conditions. These are social determinants. This is how life is designed around us. You know, all these things are critical factors in our success in life. If we do not perform through these living conditions, then our health gets reduced we create risk behaviors that would, if they're not cared for at the individual response, then we have an institutional response, and that's where a lot of our partnerships are showing up. A lot of our agencies, a lot of our community-based organizations are formed because people are not getting what the markets, the living conditions have provided for them. So understanding that many of our community-based organizations are crafted from this need to advocate for living condition changes here through resource development. So critical part of this to understand is that as humans walking into our institutions, our imperfect selves are walking into these institutions, and we are creating designs primarily by the imagination to impact the design of our living conditions. This is where the orientation has to change. Community capacity building is developed to bring information back into these institutions so that they can have their inequities covered. So if you are a community-based organization, if you're an alliance that's formed, your goal is to create local knowledge in your actions of executing the policy that's given to you, taking that information and that policy and bringing it back up into government or your other partners who may not have access to your talent and knowledge base to cover what those inequities are doing. If we don't have this framework, then we're looking what we call downstream, right? This is upstream, right? So change happens here. If we're asking people to change down here, then we're not solving anything. We have to solve at scale. That's up here, and it's cheaper. So what we have to do is better understand where does advocacy really fit? What is our role in advocacy? And what resource development happens into our community. So if Commerce gives you a grant to execute some policy action in the community, they're asking you to develop new local knowledge that the government doesn't have, bring it back into government, just like that last diagram said, to help them better understand how to reduce the margins. So if I've come out of the philanthropy arena, and I've been in the field for 30 years. I know what charitable lens looks like, and I still see it. And a lot of it is that our nonprofits, our community-based organizations, are in a position of seeking resources from these institutions, including our foundations and areas, as if it's a gift to those community-based organizations. Your work, if you're doing the work in the field, is building the capacity of these institutions to achieve more. Any questions on that? Okay, when I hear silence, I hear people are fearful. I think people are fearful of asking questions. Let's break this barrier. Okay, thank you. It's not no.
So with your point of bringing the information back to the government agencies and also going downstream and doing what you can within all of the, if it's a grant, all the grant guidelines. So it's kind of the two sides, right? But I think we forget about bringing it back.
Yes, great. Yes, great point. In fact, what we have is we've been conditioned to have egocentric goals, which means that I measure what my work is, and that's it. I keep it in-house, and maybe I publish it in some kind of social impact report, like we serve X many people, and so on and so on. That's egocentric goals. That's just about self, right? That doesn't impact up here, because now we need new conditioning around ecocentric goals. What movement do I belong to? What data does that movement need to help advance the change upstream? So understanding that when you do your strategic plans and your outcomes, you're isolating your outcomes based off of what your strategic plan is and not what the living conditions are asking you to do, then what change are you really making upstream? If not, you are really focusing downstream on the charitable side of the lens. Yes.
bring my community opportunities and strategic opportunities for housing. So I go and gather all this information from these things because I'm just a little person. I can't do a lot of things. But these people aren't here learning this. So I'm taking all this stuff back to them. And it's annoying to them, but I keep on doing it for the last 5, 6 years, seeing progress and change. But not only doing that, I also work in the behavioral health field. And when the changes come and the laws come and the House bills are changed, they can vote, they can do these things. I bring those to the marginalized, and I'm bringing it back to them. So that empowers them to let them know that the government agencies are just people being paid money that you're not deserving, that is offered to you. You know, they're just, it's not their money. You know, so that circle, is that kind of what you were saying?
That would be a full system approach, yes. Because part of this is understanding that these living conditions are formed by government, right? Government tells you how much you can pollute. Government tells you where your water source is coming from, right? Hello, Flint, Michigan. Right, that's a political determinant, right? They determine the policy, and guess what? Are they tracking their decisions into the field? Most likely not, right? That's what accountability is, being able to make a decision up here and then following your decision all the way through. You make a decision, we got the money out, we're done, and then the community is left picking up the pieces of what the policy failed to do. So going back to this map, your work is here.
I like that how you said, and I'll stop here. I like how you said that the government, because I see it in mine, and they see it as if they're charitable and they're doing this as charity. Oh my God! But if they see it as this is just what we do. This is our job to make sure that our communities are healthy and well, and they might not even know that there's political determinants of health, and so having those voices of advocacy and stuff like this is just a lot of validation. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and yeah, thank you. And this is where the political spin happens, right? Where you get folks who will look at a solution as something as a giveaway. Giveaway to what? To the inequities that their policies have created through a neutral approach to something that didn't account for the unique needs of the living conditions that people come from. Your strategic partnerships are focused here because a lot of community-based organizations are formed because people aren't getting something, right? So it's not that you are asking for a handout, you are building the capacity of government to achieve more. Okay. So, we have to get beyond inclusive decision-making because that's just one thing, one action. This is a theory of being legit. This is the view of the public back to your institutions, to government, and the ability to understand, are you being effective or not? Because what happens is we get a lot of folks who come with their business orientation into leadership in these organizations and government and using their imagination to create policy or execute a campaign or build a building and so on, and not accounting for a full stream of consideration that the public really needs to be involved in and understand what real social impact looks like. So what you have here is understanding, so you have these 6 core areas here, focusing on justice, is it outcome fair? Are we prioritizing the most vulnerable people, or are we prioritizing what we think is in our head? And are we reducing the margins in our work? Are we measuring that? Are we actually saying that, are we being honest about the fact that our own designs will marginalize others? And so that there's still more work to be done. Are our procedures fair? That includes decision making. That includes orientation of employees. Participation, deliberation. Who gets access to participate? And that includes employees, because one of the things we believe at Athena is employees are the first line of community. So if you're not caring for your employees and their lived experience and the work, then, or you're creating harm within your workforce, then you're not meeting your public mission. So how do you make sure that you have participation in deliberation, including your employees, who may not have a job description that says they can contribute, but they may have the lived experience, right? Because if we go back to this, your strategic partnerships are your employees too, right? We don't want to hire diversity for diversity's sake. We hire diversity because we need to learn how to see the world a little bit better, richer, so that we're not just using our imagination, but we're informed by the lived experience. So this is as you can see in your handout, this is a form that we're working at Athena Group and really trying to understand how to erase the line between organization values and principles with community. Because the work that you do back into community is movement building, movement outcomes. If you're an organization working in the community, if you're a government agency targeting to the community, understanding what movements you belong to and what you contribute to is critical. Trust building this is what trust building looks like. But we never get an orientation to it. Because let me tell you something, if I don't see how something's being decided, I'm not gonna trust you. You're doing something behind the closed door. If you're building your agenda without asking the community what should be on that agenda, they're not gonna trust you. If you put a highly complex agenda item on your staff meetings and you get 5 minutes time for them to give you some input or reflections on it, that's not gonna work. So it's critical to understand all these different elements in trust building. Are your policies aligned, or are they just scattered everywhere? And those policy alignment is not just to your organization, but to the movements that you contribute to, which you only will know when you actually strengthen your strategic partnerships. Questions about this? Yes.
Do you want me to repeat anything?
Sure. Did people not hear him? I just want to make sure that. Okay, they're good.
Okay,
All right, good.
thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
But yeah, just to close up, I was just saying it's because of that partnership, my agency, we are a local government agency and we work with the zone on almost everything that has to do with the community.
Yes.
And you know, there are just insights that we have that you would not get anywhere else. You won't get it in census data, you won't get it in any other kind of data. I mean, there are populations that exist within our community they don't have a paper trail, you know. So the only reason we know they're there and we know what they want is because we are very involved in getting that, you know, on the ground feedback.
Great. And let me point this out, just because it's such a great comment there, is that this is a fractal of life here. And so make this disappear, government, and put your own organization here. Because you're doing this, right? You're still doing this. Anytime you're executing, you work from the zone, and it's not that the community is telling you something, the community is changing you. Because if you hold information from the community and you hold it out like this, like it doesn't, like, oh, we collected that, it's in this report, stuff like that, and it doesn't change the way that you are addressing your internal functions, then you're not changing anything. Yes. Right, exactly. Okay, so from this form, what we can do now is think about what does accountability in our designs look like? How do we make sure we're covering these bases and how we design and execute our policies, our programs, our campaigns, our building development? So one of the things we've done is we started creating a Canvas model, which is like just a quick one-page response sheet, basically, that we work with community on to inform what these things mean. Because we can't define justice on our own. It has to be defined with the community. We can't define any of these categories without having the community define it with us. And then what we can do then is bring the sheet around to our meetings with our own staff or with our external partners and be held accountable to what we've said that we're going to do together. Because this is a value-based approach to not leaving people behind. Critically important is to understand on your effectiveness, on your effectiveness side, making sure that you account for the people you're leaving behind. No design is perfect, but you should be truthful and honest about, hey, you know, we need to build our capacity on disability. we can't reach this target population because we don't have the right resources to do that. If you say that out loud, then you will find the strategic partners to help you. But if you see it as shaming, then you're isolating your impact. We have a lot of fear-based leadership going on who feel like they have to be perfect, presenting perfection out to the community. No one's asking for that. We need honesty so we can all understand where we fit and where our assets are. You know, one of the things I like to say is my testimony is my strength, my trauma is my asset. If I'm your employee and you don't understand that my trauma can actually help, the trauma that I've actually had to break through from breaking the cycle of poverty, which is extremely painful to break the cycle of poverty. I mean, I had to leave some bits of my identity behind in order to take a couple steps forward and then gather myself back up so I can step back into my identity. That's painful. And if you're not seeing me as an asset and you're trying to serve my community, then you need to know that I don't show up by myself. I got giants, I got aunties, I got icons that are all behind me who paved the way for me. And if you don't take me in as an asset, then I may think that you're disrespecting not only me, but all those who've come behind me, who allowed me to be here on the stage. And I know that others feel that way, who come from the margins. So one of the things we're doing now is trying to get these tools out to better understand how can you use this model. But take a baby step. Take a baby step. What we're going to do now is we're going to do a little exercise. We're going to how many of you know liberating structures? A couple people? Yeah? So liberating structures and, actually I don't have, maybe I think on the later slide I have a web address. 33 tools, maybe 34, tools, that suite of tools that you can use to help liberate the structures around you. How do you get people to participate, deliberate? You know, people are like, oh, we can't have inclusive decision making, it takes too long. We can't have decision making at scale. Liberating structure actually allows you to do that. So what we're going to do is use one of those tools today. It's called Troika Consulting. It is an opportunity to gather feedback about a challenge. And so what we want you to do is look at we've given you prompts on the back side of legitimacy document, I think it is. There should be some prompts.
Not everyone has a handout,
Not
so
everyone
there's
has a
going to
handout,
have
I'm
to be
sorry.
some sharing.
To do some sharing. And what we want you to do is we're going to want you to get in a group of 3, and we're going to have you do some consulting with each other to show you just how easy it is to break the status quo in this work. So what we want to do is get in a group of 3. You're going to have 3 roles. One person is going to play the client, and then 2 of those roles are going to be played by consultants. We're going to rotate around. It's going to go really fast. As you can tell, it's really fast. And this is an opportunity for you to get feedback on a challenge that you might have on any of those areas. You know, one of your challenges might be like, oh, my boss doesn't listen, or everything, or there's regulatory control. I love that one. There's always about regulatory control somewhere. All those things that folks may see as a barrier, the consultant's jobs are just to listen and then ask clarifying questions. No editorializing, just ask clarifying questions. And then the client's gonna come back and give answers to clarifying questions. The consultants are going to generate ideas between each other while the client takes notes. Okay, and then the client gets a minute to reflect on where the wisdom is and what was given. And then you're gonna rotate. It's that simple. This is a very quick feedback tool that you can use in community. You can use your Canvas model and go, hey, you know, you're the client, you're the consultants to my Canvas model. Here's an approach that we're trying to make. And then they can ask clarifying questions to you, and then you can respond, and then let them go at it, because they're going to give you information that you most likely don't have, even if you think you know it all, because we know we don't all know it all. Okay, so if you can quickly get into groups of 3, and we're gonna set a clock, and we're gonna ask you to share a challenge. It can be something off of one of the prompts that you have. It can be a real life situation you're going through right now, or a policy area that you don't quite understand where you're going with, or need a little bit more direction on something. This is just a baby step in practicing a new habit. Okay, so if you can get into groups of 3, and then we're going to start a clock. Oh, yeah, face-to-face. Thank you so much, though. Yeah.
You created like to look at that and do a different little exercise with that with her because she's not
You need a,
the hand down. He's got Ken, and I'll go do it with her in the hallway. She doesn't want to. She's way out of her comfort zone. So.
yeah, I get it.
Make sure you introduce yourselves. Say hi. It's okay if you have to have a group of 4. Okay, do we all have a client now? We have someone starting off a client? Can we get it raised hands if you're playing the role of a client? Volunteer, someone play the role of a client first. Okay. What's that? No. Do you want me to give you an example of a challenge? Let's see. How about you could do a challenge around. Let's say that Commerce has just released a new RFP, and you're not quite sure if you have the right qualifications to do the RFP. That could be a challenge. You can make up the challenge anything you want to, but the whole goal is to figure out how do you give feedback. That's the goal of this exercise, really, is to take in feedback. Okay? All right, so we're going to start the 1 minute clock. Clients, tell your story challenge. Here we go. Faith? Fif- 15 seconds left. Okay.
1 minute?
So your 1 minute's over. Did everyone get their challenge out? Okay. So now, the consultants, now it's your time. Now it's your time to ask clarifying questions. So those are questions that what you just listened to, what you heard. You want to ask, okay, so when you said this, what do you mean by that? or when you said this policy is happening, take it one more step for me. Ask the clarifying. These are the clarifying questions that so that you have an understanding how to make sense of what's just been said to you. Okay. So we're going to give you 2 minutes to ask clarifying questions, and the client doesn't respond until the 2 minutes are over. I'm sorry, you can respond to the clarifying questions, client. Sorry, I misspoke. One minute left for clarifying questions. 1 minute left. Okay, so this is the fun part. Consultants, those playing the role of consultant, this is your time to turn to the other consultant and brainstorm. Think about all the different things they're not thinking about. This is the wisdom part, give advice, but speak to each other. The client should be taking notes. Quietly taking notes. The client doesn't have a role except for taking notes about the wisdom that they're receiving. Okay? So, and you get a whole 4 minutes for this one. Okay? So okay, as consultants, your role is finished. So now the client will give feedback to what they heard about the wisdom that they heard. Okay? So, client, you have 1 minute to express the wisdom that you've heard from the consultants. This is your takeaway. Okay. Okay, that's round one. How'd that go for y'all? That's round one. Was that okay? Yeah? Pretty easy process, right? To get some instant feedback to a concept and idea. Okay, we have time to do one more round to rotate the client role. So we need a new client for this next round. So do I have the next client? Please raise your hand in your groups if I can see that you are a client. Okay. All right, so here we go for round two. The new client is going to give their challenge. The two consultants are going to listen. The client number one has 1 minute to explain their challenge. Any challenge, because the practice here is gaining feedback. So here we go. 1 minute for the client to announce their challenge. Okay. Consultants, this is your time to ask clarifying questions. Client, you can respond to those clarifying questions. Try not to editorialize. Stick to very quick responses here that are needed to those clarifying questions. 2 minutes. Okay, it's time now. Consultants, here's your opportunity to generate ideas and suggestions to your client. Client, you're going to take notes, searching for wisdom of what you're listening for. Just because someone is saying something that you think you've heard before, listen for the wisdom. and what is being told to you. Okay, so we're gonna give 3 minutes on this one. So consultants brainstorm to each other, clients take notes. One minute. Okay, this is the time for the clients to give a reflection on the wisdom that they received. 1 minute for the client to give reflections on the wisdom that they received. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Unfortunately, we're out of time, so we don't have time to do a third round. I'm sorry. It's the way life goes today. Just quickly, is the opportunity to debrief. How did that go for folks? Yeah? Were you honest in asking for help? This is a barrier that has to be broken. So were you honest for asking for help? Did you feel vulnerable as a client asking for help? How can you use these tools that we've experienced today back in your work? So those are reflection questions. Were you honest in asking for help? Because this is a big thing for us to overcome. We're all upstream. As much as we think we may be downstream, we're all upstream. We all have actions that impact other people. So, were we honest when we were asking for help? How did you feel asking for help? One word, folks. Shame. Okay. Scared. Judged. With relieved. That's great. Yeah. Unsolvable problem. Okay. We have to understand where does that anxiety come from? Because we've been conditioned for that. We've been socialized around that. And that's part of the breaking of the status quo we talk about, is these critical relational points. We can't walk by ourselves, and we don't know where we're going by ourselves. We need help. This is just one tool to gain that help from each other. So we're not using our imagination on other people. It doesn't take much. Imagine doing this back in your organization with employees, your colleagues, getting feedback like this, and how they feel consulting back to you, that they got to contribute something, that they got to have a sense of co-ownership. And then can you see these tools being used to help you build more, be more legit in community? Liberatingstructures.com is where that tool came from. If you go to that website, liberatingstructures.com, there's an entire kit, it's freeware, you might call it, of how to break down the barriers of inclusion and wisdom, how to invite wisdom in. There's fantastic tools to use to gain the voices of many in a very short time. Okay, so just one more tool to think. We're over time. Does anyone have questions that I can answer really quickly? No?
Yeah, we are out of time. Can we give him a round of applause? Thank you for the tool.
Yes. And if you find me in the app, or do this QR code here, send me a note, and we'll put up a workshop together to help you fill out that Canvas model. Okay? So shoot me a note saying, hey, I want help with this Canvas model. And then we'll gather folks together and do that together. That's my personal commitment to help with access. So thank you very much.